Hi, Stitchers. Welcome to Tatreez Talk, where we share conversations about Palestinian embroidery. I'm Amani here with my co-host Lena, chatting with talented embroiderers and artists, sharing their stories, inspirations, and the cultural significance behind their work.
On today's episode, we're chatting with Haneen, a Palestinian Tatreez artist and nurse based in Virginia who uses Tatreez as a way to blend culture and resistance in order to create a community wherever she goes. She's also another dear friend that we had the pleasure of getting to know during last year's Tatreez Retreat. Haneen, we are so glad to have you with us. Welcome to Tatreez Talk.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, we're so excited to have you. We've been talking about having you on for a while, so I'm glad we were able to make it happen. We're
I
very
know, me
glad
too.
to be chatting, and we actually we should also say we recently got to hang out in person in Jordan, which was great. We all happened to be there at the same time. And Haneen was there preparing for her wedding,
Yes.
also visiting family and stuff. But you know, the fun stuff was the shopping. And yeah, it was really good to see you after God, since October. So it was really good
Since
to see you
October.
in person. Yeah. So Haneen, we always like to kick off by asking people to share with us a little bit about you and your family's connection to Palestine.
Yeah, so both of my parents are Palestinian. My dad was born in Nablus and ended up moving to Kuwait when he was really young. And then my mom was born in Kuwait, but originally her family was from Al-Quds, Jerusalem. So they both ended up growing up in Kuwait. They left before the war happened and they came to America. Dad studied here, mom went to cosmetology school. They made a life for themselves here. And we've kind of just made sure to keep our culture alive, and gone back and forth between Palestine every couple of years, and that's kind of my story with my family and, my heritage.
And when
So
you
you,
go back, oh, sorry, Lena, I was just going to say, when you go back to Palestine, where are you typically visiting?
We typically go to Nablus because we have a lot of family there. There's an area called Beit Wazan, which where my family kind of originates from. So lots of family there. We end up going and taking a bus sometimes and going all over Palestine, in the West Bank and seeing what places we can see. My dad ended up renting a huge bus one time and we went all over like Akka, Yafa, all those places, Jerusalem, and I got to see that, which was a beautiful experience. But I haven't unfortunately been for like 5 years. So I'm really hoping to go once everything kind of calms down a little bit.
Inshallah.
yeah, inshallah. That's so difficult. So I'm curious about whether or not you got introduced to Tatreez on one of those trips, or it's been something a little bit more recent.
So it was a little bit more recent. I really wish that I was introduced to it before when I went to Nablus because the stuff that I see online is absolutely beautiful and I wish I was able to go. Um, but I got introduced to Tatriz actually in 2021, end of 2021. I had just moved to Michigan and I was kind of trying to find something new to do. I had been down the knitting path, knitted everything I can, been down the crocheting path, did everything I can, and I was just kind of bored. So I was like, I feel like I saw something about Tatriz and my mom had all these machine embroidered thwab and I was like, let me look into this. And I know that Wafa name was just coming out with like her kits and her website and all these beginners courses and I saw a lot of great things. So I was like, let me try this out. So I did, took a beginner's course. And at first it was like so frustrating. I was like, I don't know if I can actually do this. I can't even make an X. And yeah, I couldn't even make an X. And I was like, let me give it a couple of more weeks, see if I can get the hang of it. And eventually I got it. And that kind of just took off after that. I made bookmarks, I made a bunch of big projects after that. And it became something so much more meaningful for me later on than just like some new project that I decided to fill my time with.
I mean, typically, like Nablus is not known for Tatreez, obviously. Like my
Mhm.
dad's side of the family is also from the Nablus area, and your mom being from Al Quds too, but like grew up in Kuwait. Like Tatreez wasn't necessarily something that's very strong in the areas that they're from. So I'm curious how your family interacts with Tatreez, especially like now you are like a certified Tatreezer. You are stitching all day, all night, all the time.
Yeah, so when I first started, I made little bookmarks, and my parents were kind of like, "Oh, that's cool," you know. And it wasn't really anything like any sort of pattern that was like very like I guess that you would see on Swab. It was just kind of like little triangles here and there, a flower here and there. And then when I started, my dad actually came up with the idea of recreating the Palestini like wedding procession. And I was like, Baba, that is something so big. I've only made two bookmarks. What do you mean? Like,
I love
that's
Baba's ambition. Yes.
and he
We
was
love a
like, "No, I
support.
think you can do it." And he was like, "Just draw the people out, use that program that you have, which was Stitch Fiddle, and figure it out." And I was like, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna try." And so my dad was a super big supporter from that moment on. You know, he really wanted to see me make this huge mural of this wedding procession. And so every couple of days I would show him, you know, my work and how much progress I'd made. And I told him I'm never going to make the people again because it was just so difficult. That was not my thing. But I wanted to finish it, right? And then I told him, I was like, you know, Bob, it looks a little empty. What do you think? Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should do that. And he would give me little ideas here and there. When it came to the rest of my family, my mom also started like picking up on the fact that like, oh, she's making stuff that's like actually really nice now. It's not just like a bookmark or two, you know? And so once I made like the wedding procession, my parents were like, okay, what's your next project? What are you going to make next? You know? And then my extended family was kind of taken aback. They were like, "Isn't this like something that a lot of like the elderly population work on, like, you know, back home?" And I was like, "Yeah, but it's so fun." And they're like, "You don't have anything else to do?" And I was like, "This is, you know what? You're requesting things, so clearly you like it, you know?" So my extended
Oh my
family and
God.
my immediate family took a little bit of time, you know, but then once they saw the kind of work that you could do with Tatreez, whether it was doing stuff on jackets or shirts or on the wall or like anything, blankets, they really started seeing how beautiful it could be and that it wasn't just something that was like on a thobe or something that they see on the wall that was machine made because they saw the amount of work that it took to create these beautiful pieces. I think that was something that nobody realized in my family was how long it took to make these things.
Yeah, that's.
That's
I feel like that's a
amazing.
common. That's a common occurrence. No, like no one really understands the amount of work that goes into it until they pick up the needle and the thread themselves. Have you
Mm-hmm.
gotten anyone in your family to start stitching now?
I have not. I tried to get like some of like my mom, but she was not into it. My great aunt though, she I had no idea, but she actually used to Tabriz as well. So I feel like I got to create connections with my great aunt that I never like would have created if it wasn't for Tabriz, which was super,
Mm-hmm.
super nice to have. So like I would go to Toronto, she lives in Toronto, and we would talk about Tabriz and like I would bring my stuff with me and then when she comes over here, like she sits and she looks at my work, you know. And then
That's
she
so
doesn't care
sweet.
about the back, thankfully. She does not look at the back. So, but she'll be like, why do you use these colors, you know? And she's has a little bit more traditional sense of like what
Yeah.
Tatreez should look like, you know? Whereas I feel like
Mm-hmm.
now it's taken such a modern like look that sometimes like crazy colors are used and, you know, different patterns are put together that like the more traditional way is like that's not what they used to do, you know. So seeing her evolve that way and seeing me like work with her and try to figure out to blend the two, you know, traditional versus modern was pretty cool.
Yeah, so you're actually segueing into a topic that we wanted to talk to you about, which was basically this balance, right, of tradition and modernity, I guess. I know that, like myself included, a lot of Palestinians in the diaspora look to Tatriz as a way to preserve our heritage and connect to our roots. And so there's like this not necessarily debate, but there's a thought that goes into like how do we respect the tradition and how it's historically been practiced in terms of colors and motifs and the things that you make, and then also kind of acknowledging the present time and where you're at, and basically, yeah, figuring out how to balance out those two things. So I'm just curious, like from your perspective, how do you balance out this idea of keeping traditions alive, but also evolving the tradition to meet you where you're at?
So a lot of the time when I end up starting a piece, I look at the meaning of the motifs, but I also look at like how they're going to blend together, you know, like for example, like I had a button up that I did a motif on, and I was like, okay, I really like the idea of this motif, but I want to make it so it all fits together and looks really good together with the colors in terms of like it being fall. I wanted fall colors, you know. So changing the colors, taking out the tradition in that sense, and adding some like colorful goodness to it, you know. So kind of that way, but also I feel like the way that I attached a modern sense to it was not just looking at something that had a motif that represented something I wanted in my piece, rather than letting the motifs represent something different for me as I was working on it, if that makes sense. So, for example, the piece that I'm working on now and the wedding procession piece, I remember certain stitches during that time that are connected to certain memories now in my life. So, not only like these pieces are representing certain parts of my life in certain stages. Just like you have a song that reminds you of a certain memory in your life, it's almost like there's like a stitch or two that I remember that connects me to a certain thing in my life. So my most recent piece, my chess piece that I'm working on that I'm actually giving to my mom, I started in January when kind of everything started picking up with wedding planning and me getting proposed to and all of that. So I remember certain stitches of certain stages of all of that. And like currently right now, the stage that I'm stitching in is going through the transition of moving out of my family home and going into my new home with my husband, you know. So that part of the chess piece I will always remember and will always be special to me. So modernizing it in that sense is something new that I've actually taken up.
I love that. It's like يعني, we always talk a lot about the stories you tell with the stitches, but I love it's kind of like the stories that the stitches tell to you about
Mm-hmm.
these moments in your life. I'm gonna be honest, I'd never even thought about it like that, and I love that kind of view on it. So I guess when has that always been how you have viewed stitching, or is that kind of like this idea that has evolved as you've become deeper into your practice?
It was never something that I really thought of until like after I finished the wedding procession. I was looking at certain stitches and I was like, oh, I remember when I was doing this, I was at this cafe with my friend and we had this really deep conversation. And then like, you know, I remember when I did this part, me and my dad had a really good deep conversation about XYZ, you know. So same thing with like the chess piece, you know, I was in Jordan for some of it when I was working on that. And that was a really fun time seeing you guys going wedding shopping, all of that, you know, kind of being in Jordan with my family for the last time, but in a completely different transition later on when I go with my husband and his family. So that was like something really that evolved over time. I never thought of it that way until just recently when I was thinking of going on this podcast. And I was like, you know, every single time I've been working on these large pieces, I have like so many memories connected to like this part and that part and that part. And so, yeah, it's been something that it's evolved over time.
That's so beautiful. And but I have a question because of both those pieces that you just mentioned were both gifts, right?
Hmm.
You
Yes.
gifted them to somebody, for the wedding procession and the chess piece. So how do they get to enjoy that? How do you kind of do you share those like tidbits with them, or is it just something that you see because it's family, so you'll see those pieces?
So with the wedding procession, that's something kind of new that I was thinking of, and I told my parents about it, and they were like, "That's really like sweet," you know. And I was just telling my mom yesterday, and I was like, you know, this part of the chess piece, like, remember when we were doing this and we went to Jordan, and like this whole part here on the left is like all the feelings that we were talking about, you know. And so I think that I actually will end up whenever I gift something it'll to explain to them like the meaning and the emotion that was behind that piece. I also made some coasters for my mother-in-law when everything was starting to pick up with all the planning, and she absolutely loved them. And I made sure that it was pieces that had meaning and had beautiful nature in them because I knew she liked that. And so it was something meaningful for her, meaningful for me. You know, the colors were beautiful. They were all I just think that gifting people Tatreez is my way of making sure to spread the culture continuously because it'll never be like thrown away. You know what I mean? It's always going to be hung somewhere or it's going to be given to somebody later on or handed down. You know, my mom just gave me one of her thobes that she had that was handmade that was given to her as a wedding present when she was young. And that like handmade thobe I will always keep with me, you know? And that's like what, 30 years old, 40 years old. So it's amazing. These pieces are timeless. They're never going to go out of, style or anything like that. So there's always going to be somebody that loves them.
Yeah. We always talk about this because when we first met you during the Tatreez Retreat, you were stitching a gift for a family member and you were telling us about all these different projects that you stitch and you often gift them. And obviously, these projects we're talking about now are projects that you have gifted or are going to gift. I'm a kind of a greedy pleaser. I'm not gonna lie,
100%.
but also I do tend to work on like really big pieces that take me forever, so it's different. But I am curious. Do you have any pieces that you have gifted that are your favorite pieces? Whether it's because they looked a certain way, the design looked a certain way, or there was a deeper story behind it.
I'm not gonna lie, this chess piece that I'm working on right now,
That's the one. That's the one.
that's the one. It's the one I'm most connected to. But I think it's also going to be really meaningful for my mom because she knows all like the times that I was stitching it, and it's gonna be a really nice memory for her. So I can make more, you know?
There you go. That's a good attitude about it. I love that.
No, I am like a Manny. I am not of the generous sort when it comes to Tatreez. So I'm gonna ask, what are you working on or what have you worked on that has been just for you?
So after this chess piece, I have a very large map of Palestine that I'm going to start.
Ooh.
That I got from one of the members on the Tatreez, I think it's like Tatreez Soul Sisters page on Facebook.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, somebody was selling this beautiful pattern and I bought it and I'm super excited to make it. It's like 5 feet tall, almost as tall as me.
Wait, I think I know exactly which one you're talking
Yes,
about. It was
yes,
like this her cut the woman's cousin
yes,
designed the pattern, right? Yeah, it's
yes, yes.
beautiful.
It's
Oh my
huge.
God.
It's beautiful. I'm so excited to
Yes.
start it. And I'm going to put it up, inshallah, in my new home. That's my goal. That'll
I
be
love
like my
that.
first Tatriz piece for our house. And I feel like it's gonna be very meaningful. It's gonna take a while, that's for
Oh,
sure.
for
But
sure. For
it's
sure.
gonna take a while, but I'm super excited to start that. That's going to be my first piece that I will actually keep, which is crazy to
That
me.
is
No, stop it.
wild.
Yeah.
See, that
Stop
is
it.
wild.
Haneen, are you serious?
Yes, yes. I've made so many things. Like I've made like a little Palestinian flag. I've made coasters. I'm making another
Yeah.
set of coasters for somebody that's getting married. I made baby like a baby what is it called? A
Like
baby
a bib?
onesie.
Oh, onesie.
Um the only thing that I've ever like decided to sell took me forever. And I think it was
Mm,
because I was selling it. I
yeah.
really didn't I had no desire to do it for some reason and I eventually
Yeah.
finished it, but for some reason, it just didn't sit well with me to sell stuff after that, and I never did it again. So I'm gifting forever, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, you are such a generous
Yeah.
Tatrizer girl.
But the
I'm
people that I gift
like,
it to, the people that I gift it to know how much I work on it,
yeah.
and they very much appreciate it. It's not like I'm just giving it to strangers. Because if I was, I feel like I
Totally.
would be affected by it a little bit differently.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's the key is like the people that you're giving it to really understand what, even
Hmm.
if they're not stitching themselves, they understand the significance behind the art and like what it takes to actually like create it, which, that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I take out my tattoos wherever I go. I have a little pouch and I keep it in my purse.
Hmm.
My mom hates it. She's like, it's taking up so much space. And I was like, you'll never know when you need it. She's like, we're going to the mall. And I was like, I don't know. You never know. So
I was actually,
I make sure to take it out wherever I go, whoever I'm around. So everybody knows that I do it.
yeah. I was actually going to comment on that and say, like, you always have your tatris with you everywhere you go. So I feel like it's just easy for you to constantly be in a state of stitching.
Yep. And when you're in a state of stitching, like I don't know about you guys, but it is the only time, this is gonna sound crazy, that my mind is blank.
Hmm.
Yeah, I
No,
get
I
it.
Like
get
I
that.
don't need to think about anything else. I've tried to watch TV while I'm stitching. It doesn't work. I don't pay
Hmm.
attention at all. And so stitching is really the only time that I have absolutely nothing going through my head and I can just relax.
Hmm. Hmm. No, I understand. You know how people talk about meditation and being able to like meditate and like just like zone out and clear your mind. And I can't do that just sitting there. I can't do it. But with Tatreez, I can. Like I'm like that's why I always say like Tatreez is like a form of meditation for me because I can totally if I wanted to, I can totally zone out and just like stitch and like be in this like other world. And I feel like a lot of stitchers I think can relate to that idea.
Yeah, I also feel like there is never really a wrong place to take out your tatreez. I have not ran into a wrong place to take out my
Yeah.
tatreez. Is it a weird place? Sure, but it's not wrong. And I feel like the by doing that, it you expose tatreez to people on so many different levels. Like I went
Mm-hmm.
to, I'm trying to think of, I was wearing something. I don't remember if it was a mask. It wasn't a handmade mask by me, but I was wearing some form of Tatreez artwork. And I went to the mall and I was at some like it was like some organic like soap shop that's like really famous. I can't remember the name of it. And she started talking to me and she was like, I really love the embroidery. And then she started talking about this very traditional Mexican embroidery. And she showed me pictures and she told me about how she went down to Mexico and learned it from her grandma and her grandpa, and they do it all the time. They had like a shop. And it was so cool because I would have never learned about that specific type of
Mm-hmm.
embroidery if I hadn't worn my tatriz out, or if
Yeah.
I hadn't taken out my tatris and did it while I was at the mall,
Mm-hmm.
or even like my little 3-year-old cousin, my little cousin Jad, he loves to cut the string because I
That's so
tatris
cute.
around him all the time, and he'll be like, "Can I
Mm-hmm.
cut it? Can I cut it?" So he knows now whenever I take it out that he can cut the string.
Aw.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
So
and
cute.
eventually, like I really do think that children learning at such a young age by just like doing that, while doing it around them, makes them like want they have this like yearning to like learn it because they see me do it all the time. Eventually, it's gonna go from cutting to wanting to thread the needle, wanting to
Mm-hmm.
make an X, wanting to, and I feel like it really starts when they're so young like that. I would have loved if
Mm-hmm.
somebody did that with me.
Yeah, totally. You gotta get. There are these kits. I gotta send it to you because I got one for my nephew because my nephew's gonna be 5 in September and he's the same way where he would always see me stitching and he's like, I want to stitch, I want to stitch.
Hmm.
There are these plastic canvases that are pre-printed with like these little plastic needles and like yarn instead of thread, and it's for like little kids. And he was doing it.
That's
I
so
bet
cute.
you that your like your little cousin, even though he's 3, like he'll be able to kind of like catch on. But
That's a good
I think
idea.
it's
You should send me the
great.
link to that.
I will, and I think it's good because it definitely opens up like a new door of creativity for kids.
Hmm.
I'm definitely a big proponent of like people of all ages exploring and being creative and playing with art in different ways. So
I love that. Haneen, you also mentioned that you have been in weird places, but not wrong. What is the weirdest place you pulled out your tatreez?
The weirdest place. Let me try and think. Oh, geez.
I feel like both Mary and Haneen, they are the will pull our threes out anywhere girlies.
They are. They are.
Because I cannot do that. I need like to be set in my space for sure.
I feel like the weirdest place that I've taken it out, I can't remember exactly where I was in Jordan, but I was waiting somewhere for a long time and I had it in my bag. And so I just sat on the curb and I just took it out and started thumbising.
Not on the curb.
Yeah, like, but there was nowhere else to sit. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm just
I
gonna do
love
this
it.
until my Uber gets here.
There you
I
go.
love it. I love it.
That's how
It's too
nice it is to
funny.
have it with you all the time.
Yeah, keeps
True.
your mind going.
But I
Okay,
don't know
so
what I'm going to
Honey,
do once I have that large piece.
well, I was gonna ask
Oh,
you.
yeah.
Okay, with that large piece, I will say this. I mean, I like to use frames and stuff, but you can still bring your large piece because you could fold. Yeah, and you could fold the
That's
Ida very
true.
easily.
That's
Like
true.
as long as you don't need a big hoop with you, you're good. You can take it wherever
Yeah,
you
leave
gotta
it
go.
to leave it to you, Amani, to take your huge, massive like frame thing everywhere. I remember when we went on the Tatreez
I
retreat, you would just hold
literally,
it in this big bag.
I have
Oh
it
my
right
gosh.
here.
It
I'm
was bigger
stitching
than
my
that
chest
though.
pan. Yeah, no, this is the smaller version. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
I'm so excited for your chess piece, by the way.
Thank you. Oh, okay. I was going to ask you, so you're obviously stitching a chess piece for your mom that you're,
Mhm.
I'm assuming, going to frame or something. But has this gotten your mind going about your thobe and stitching your own?
Lena's looking at me
Lena
because I need to
I'm
stares.
start
looking
my
at
thought.
big eyes at Haneen. Yeah, yeah. I didn't ask it. I didn't ask it.
So, inshallah, after my massive big Palestine piece, the plan is that I'm not going to do any more gifts after that, and I'm going to make
Yes,
my thobe.
yes.
Yay!
Be
Yes, yes.
selfish.
So,
Be selfish.
yeah, exactly. It's hard.
It's
It's
hard.
really
Yeah.
hard for me, at least. So yes, I am trying to figure out what kind of chess piece I like. I really,
Mm-hmm.
really love the traditional Ramallah thobe.
Mm-hmm.
There's just something so beautiful to it. The colors, I really, even though my chess piece that I'm working on right now literally is like an array of colors, if you could see
Yeah.
Love
it.
it. Yeah.
The traditional like Ramallah thobe is one color, which I actually really, really love. And so I think that I might end up going that route, because I think that the simple traditional look is something so beautiful, and I don't have
Mm-hmm.
anything like it. I have all
Mm-hmm.
these like crazy machine made thobes that are all these different colors, but to have something very traditional and simple, very much similar to this vibe, would be something beautiful that I'm really looking forward to make.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but how are you going to modernize your traditional thobe? Have you thought about that yet? What's the
I think,
twist?
hmm, I don't know, but I definitely know that it's going to every section of that thobe is going to be representing a huge part of my life, because
Sure.
that's going to be like the first year I get married, and then like
Mm-hmm.
later on like have kids. It's going to be such a big transition, moving to Virginia. All of that is definitely going to take part in that thobe. It's going to be the transition to the new start of my life, really, this thobe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. I really, really love that. And have you thought, okay, so obviously you're kind of going that traditional route as far as like
Mhm.
the look. Have you thought of any any motifs that you want to make sure are a part of it that are like really important to you?
I'll be honest, I have not gotten that far.
All
I have
right.
not
All right.
gotten that far.
We'll revisit the
Re
conversation then when you have.
revisit in like 10 months, 12 months. I'll revisit
Done.
that.
Done. I'm putting it in my calendar, girl.
I love
What
that.
things are
So
you guys
good.
working on? You're working on your chess piece, Amani. And I know you're working on your
Yeah,
chess
I'm
piece
working
too,
on my
Lena.
thobe now.
I have like 10 projects outstanding. So I jump between each one depending on what materials I have available and what I'm in the mood for. So yeah, I have one that's a chess piece that I'm working through right now. But there's also a ton of other stuff too. It's a lot going on
How do
there.
you see? I noticed that if I have multiple projects, I don't finish any of them.
I'm the same way. I'm a one project at a time girly. Lena,
Yes, yes.
you're one of those you could do multiple
I
at once.
Yeah, I've actually changed my mind. I used to be one project at a time. And then I changed my mind because what happens is if I finish the project and I have nothing ready outlined up to work on, I get really, really frustrated. I get really, really anxious. My hands like don't know what to do with themselves. So I found that it's better practice for me to have multiple projects and I can just jump between them. And I also get inspired like kind of randomly. I don't know. I'm not one of those people that can sit down and just like force it. I have to be inspired. Yeah. It's hard. So many projects, so little time.
There is. I have so many things saved. I don't know when I'm going to do them.
I
Eventually, one day.
know. Yeah, I know. I'm already like because when I got my thobe, I sourced fabric from a few different amazing friends. Thank you, friends. And I picked my fabric, but then I already like one of the other fabrics. I'm like, okay, this is gonna be for the second dress, and I'm like, I haven't
Yep.
even cut the fabric for the first dress, and I was
Yep.
already thinking like, I think it never hurts to have like an abundance of inspiration and creative ideas. I'll say that much.
100%. I feel like with
Uh,
with Tatreez, it's introduced me to so many people I never would have met if I never
yeah.
Tatreez.
Yeah, no,
Like
definitely. I
I've
mean,
created so
I
much
see that all the
community
time.
through it.
And how are okay? So I know you have like obviously you're currently as we're speaking you're going to be transitioning from living in Michigan to going to Virginia. By the time this airs, you'll be settled in Virginia. But like, you have like a community in Michigan now. Like, what are your plans for like using Tatreez to build community in Virginia?
Yeah, so I've been a part of the Michigan Tatreez Circle here for the last couple of years since I moved here. That was really honestly the first kind of way that I ended up building my community was through these people. I met you guys through that, you
Yep,
know,
Yeah.
exactly.
which was amazing. So it created a lot of opportunities for me here, and I am planning on joining the Virginia Tatreez community. I know that Mary is already over there, so
Yes.
I'm excited. I'm excited to meet her and be able to Tatreez with her and the community over there as well. So it's going to be a great way to build that again.
I love this. It's like all these little pockets all over, not, I was just gonna say all over the country, but really like global. It's become more global, like all these little pockets of like little Tetris communities. And like you said, like
Hmm.
we met because of your involvement in a Michigan, like I've never even been to Michigan, but we met through your involvement in this like Michigan
Yes.
Tetris circle that landed you in Santa Fe for this like Tetris retreat with all these people that were, most of us had not met in person yet, which was like really
Hmm.
cool. And now we all have this like bond where even though we don't see each other all the time, yeah, I mean, we didn't, we, okay, we met you at the retreat, and then we happened to
Hmm.
all be at Jordan at the same time. That was only the second time we've ever hung out in
Yeah.
person. But it didn't
Yeah.
feel like that, right? Like
Not
we
at
have
all.
this bond, we have this bond through Tetris that like allows us to like explore you know, each other as like individuals, which has been really, really cool.
Yeah, mind you, that Tatreez retreat was probably the most spontaneous thing I'd ever done.
Really? Oh,
Wait,
Yeah,
wow.
tell
like to
us
go,
more.
Yeah.
like, okay, besides like my trip to Mossad, where I went with like three
Oh, I
random
remember this
people,
story.
Oh, yeah.
besides that, this Tatreez retreat was like, it was just going on a trip with a bunch of random girls that had like one thing in common to a place
Yeah.
I'd never
Yeah,
been. My
yeah.
parents, when they said New Mexico, I was like, yeah, never been. I guess we're going to New Mexico.
None of us had ever been. You
Zero.
know what? When you put it like that, Haneen, it was actually super random and spontaneous for
Yeah.
all of us, actually.
Yeah, I know when I got invited as somebody else's plus one, and I was like, okay, cool, but like I don't really know anybody except like these people that are like really popular on Instagram because of their tatreez, you know? I was like, am I good enough to be in this group right now? And
Yeah,
when I
Keith.
got there, everybody was so kind, and it was like we all knew each other for so long. It was crazy. Like
You're
there
all
was
just
nothing
nerds.
like,
Tatreez nerds.
yeah, yeah,
No.
yes,
We
yes,
really
yes.
were.
And everybody was in a different part of their tatreez journey, which was beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, the
Yeah.
one thing I remember about Haneen at this on this trip was there were like what, 12 of us, I think, right, Amani? I
Yeah,
think
I
around
think so.
12.
Yeah.
So it's New Mexico. You need a car. So there were three people who volunteered to rent cars. And I always remember Haneen. She rolled up in this massive, like
Huge.
SUV type of like vehicle, and then she like pops down, and she's like this really
The
small.
tiniest little thing.
It was a, what was it called? It was a Hummer or no, a Jeep or
It
something.
was a
I
Jeep. No,
forget.
it was a huge Jeep. It
It
was a
was a
Jeep.
massive
It was
car,
a
and
huge
you had to like step. There were like the two steps that you really had to use.
Yeah.
It was a high car. I mean, it was hard to get in those seats. I'll never forget that.
Dead. Okay, that's
I completely
hilarious.
forgot about that.
I kind of did too. I was gonna say, okay, the one thing I really remember about the retreat, Haneen, and something that you said, I think it was like at the end of the retreat, and it made me feel so good to hear you say this. You said something along the lines of like, man, this was the first time in a long time I've been around this many Arab women, and it just felt like so supportive, and like no one was competing. Everyone was just like excited for each other. And that made my heart like explode. Because that's like exactly like what like we want to foster. So it was real, that definitely stood out to me. It was really nice
Yeah,
to hear you
there
say
was
that and
there
feel
was
that.
no like gatekeeping. There was no like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is my pattern or this is my way of starting the loop stitch. Amanda, you taught us how to
Yeah.
do that loop stitch, and I was like, I've never heard of this before. That's amazing. And now that's all I use, by the way. That's all
Yay.
I don't even remember what I used to do before.
I love that. I love that. No, I'm glad that we were able to, begin this kind of like journey of fostering, like, I guess this like cross country community, if you will. So I know you can't come to this year because you're busy getting married. But inshallah next year, we have you back at the retreat to like
Yes, yeah.
build more friendships and all that.
I know. I'm so excited. And it's only going to grow and become more beautiful. You guys are doing an amazing job.
Oh, thank you. I mean, obviously, it's Anjad is like not even us; it's like the
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
Like this would not be a thing without everyone wanting it to be a thing. So, glad we can. I'm glad we could be the what the little like dummies to put it together.
Yeah, no.
All right, Haneen. Before we let you go, we always like to ask people about what is a major life lesson that Tatreez has brought to you?
I think the biggest thing that I've learned with Tatreez is not only patience. Patience was like the biggest thing for me was, if you make a mistake, it's okay. There's ways to fix things. It might not look how you wanted it to look, but it will still be beautiful. And I've kind of applied that concept to my life. Things, little hiccups happen. You had a vision of what something might look like, and now it looks different, but it's still beautiful. And that's exactly what's happened with my chess piece. I've made so many hiccups on it. And at first I was very frustrated, but I realized that it's still beautiful.
Oh,
Love that.
so beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us, Haneen. Where can everyone find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. My at is Hanuna123 and add me. Enjoy my tatreez. That's pretty much all I post now.
All of
And
us,
it's
girl,
been a
all of us.
pleasure. It's been so nice talking with you guys and catching up. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, so glad that we were able to have you. Thank you so much. We'll definitely share your information so people can follow and see the beautiful work and check out that map once you start stitching that beautiful piece.
Yes.
But thank you
Thank
again
you.
for being here, Hanina, and we will talk to you very soon, inshallah. It was so good to talk to Haneen. I think we could have probably chatted for way too long, especially if we went into wedding details. But it was really great to chat with her. And I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me and that I will not forget is what she said about the whole these stories and these memories behind the moments and the different parts of her stitching. I was like, oh my God, like literally the moment she started saying that, I started thinking about the pieces that are behind me and like, oh yeah, I was like here when I was stitching this part, or I started this piece when I was here. So that really stood out to me. I love that actually said that.
Yeah, it's like a Tatreez diary. I wish we could just like capture it more, like in more details, because I feel like I forget a lot of these special moments. Like, I mean, especially with the projects that take like, like a thobe, but it took me 2 years. There were probably so many experiences that I had that I just can't remember, but I know that they're there. I know that they're
Yeah.
in those stitches. But yeah, that's so powerful. It's a different perspective, I think, on the whole storytelling of Tatreez.
I've actually seen people do craft journals, and I almost think of like a Tatreez journal where you can like document like today I did X amount of stitches in this area, and this is how I mean I would never do that just because I'm not going to keep up with it, but the idea of it,
Yes.
highly recommend. I wish I could keep up with it.
Yeah, I love that. So beautiful. Yeah, Haneen is such a sweetheart, and just like another proof of how valuable community is through Tatreez and how we met her. And yeah, it's so lovely that you can just like literally see her, meet her one time, and then 9 months later we're like, oh hey, yeah, we're in Hamad, want to hang out?
Come meet up.
Yeah, literally. It was so easy and chill, and I love that. So
Yeah,
so good.
no, and exactly what she said. It's like there are people, and I say this all the time. Like there are people that I mean, I don't. Would you and I have ever crossed paths if it wasn't for Tatreez? Like probably not. You know.
Yeah.
And there's other people that I think about, and I'm like, honestly, the only thing we really have in common is Tatreez or it's Tatreez and being Palestinian, but then we still build this friendship based on these like these random commonalities, if you will. So it's nice to hear it from other people. And yeah, like I said earlier, like I've never even been to Michigan, and somehow her participation in this Tatreez circle in Michigan led us to meeting each other. You know, like it's a crazy small world, which I love.
I love that. I love that. And well, actually, this is a reminder to myself. We should include the Michigan Tatreez circle in case there are people listening who are in Michigan and want to join.
Yes,
so beautiful.
Definitely.
I love it. I love it. Well, you guys, thank you again so much for listening to Tatreez Talk. We want to hear about your Tatreez journey, so please share your stories with us. You can either reach us at tatreeztalk@gmail.com or on Instagram at Tatreez Talk, and we might just have you on an upcoming episode. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite listening platform, and be sure to leave a 5-star review. You can follow me at Lina's Thobe and Amani at Minamani, and again, the pod at Tatreez Talk. We'll talk to you guys next time.